Hello and welcome to the Webinar Hacker with me, Diego Laje. And in this episode, we'll talk to a man who pretty much does webinars for a living. We're talking about James Stanger, Chief Technology Evangelist at educational company CompTIA. He speaks to many in the DoD community and organizes events. And we'll talk about a lot of stuff, how to deliver effectively and how to team up with other experts to make a really profitable event, not only for you and your company, but also for your viewers. Let's dive right in with James. James, thank you very much for joining. It's great having you. James, I want to dive right into it.
Sure.
We speak a lot about the CompTIA advantage of bringing people into an event who are actually going to get something more than the pure knowledge. They're going to get the points. Could you give me a 20-second explanation about how that works?
Sure, man. I think the key is that we have access to experts, instant access, and it's really cool. So we get people from various industry verticals, whether that be government or, we've had them from healthcare, from the tech industry, if you know what I mean by tech companies, but companies that do things, whether it be in data, whether it be artificial intelligence, whether it be in cybersecurity. So I think that's one of the great advantages. You don't have to just listen to one person. We're able to tap people kind of at will. It's really cool.
And you getting the CompTIA, making it compliant means that there's a specific amount of information, knowledge, I'd say quality, information density. We tend to call it in journalism, but it's a quality that the event will give professionally to those who attend, right?
I like that. It is a real serious information density, and we try to focus on like practical implementation instead of talking about theory of things such as the 5 data points or the theory having to do with cybersecurity and zero trust. We bring in people who actually do this stuff for a living, and they can talk about the challenges that they've had. They may not be able to mention specific companies, or they may have to, remove the names to protect the guilty or whatever. But yeah, that's the really neat thing about it. It is really not only dense, but also it's really you got most of these people have kind of a background, a lot of interesting backgrounds. So they're able to take something that could be almost toxically dense, right, and actually make it interesting to folks. That's what's cool.
I want to continue along these lines, but change a little bit the avenue. Why? Because I've hosted events with you, and I've seen the special way in which you tackle these, right? You have tons of practice, obviously. And what is this thing about being an evangelist?
With an evangelist, I think one of the big things is that you have to have a lot of empathy and how people and how your audience is interested. And so what it is that, especially when it comes to these events, a lot of people are wanting to learn about new things. A lot of people are in a kind of a vulnerable area, or at least an area where they might be uncomfortable. My job as an evangelist is to bring things in to not only challenge folks, but to make them feel comfortable in that moment of being challenged and learning new things. I think that's one of the primary things about an evangelist. Also, I have another element is a kind of you could call it a liaison element, where there are experts in the field, there are students, right? And so, being able to liaise between those and really make an interesting common ground between them is always fun.
Great. So now I want to join all these questions that we had. I want to join them together, right?
Sure.
Because one thing that we always talk about here is that you can't go it alone, right? You can't be looking at the camera on your own, speaking for an hour. So which is the best way to find your teammates, to find the other voices that will help you? Of course, it's a commercial event, right? where you try to reach new audiences to sell
Yeah.
your
Mhm.
goods and services.
Mhm.
That I mean,
Sure.
that's what defense tech professionals do every day, and it's fine. But
Mhm.
um, how do you choose the best teammates to bring information density so that your students at the other side leave with something else that is not only a sales pitch, right?
Really good question. It's a really good question. I think one of the first things is I'm really lucky to be representing and working in the Department of Research at CompTIA. And so because we're interested in industry research and finding out what's going on, it's not like I work for a product or am focusing on that. I'm focusing on bringing cutting edge research. And I think that's one of the differentiators that really allows us to have not only an informed perspective, because I stand on the shoulders of giants who bring me fantastic information, but also I'm able to work with people in the research department and other areas in CompTIA with people who've worked in, let's say, technology, let's say industry, let's say government for decades. And so I'm able to draw from those resources. And that's how I'm able to hopefully make good choices. And it's not just me, it's a whole team of folks.
Yes, James, I've seen you deliver super dense, informationally
Yeah.
dense, data dense events. Now, I've also seen you team up with people from
Yeah.
outside your company.
Mhm.
And how do you choose the
Mhm.
right partner? Which are the best?
Yeah.
Which two,
Yeah.
three hints you have?
It's a really good question. One of the things that we do is we keep track of a lot of current events, a lot of announcements, a lot of whether it be press releases, things like that, and we're able to identify in the industry, what some of those major changes are. And so we just basically ask, well, who are the top industry players? And because CompTIA, we're a member-driven organization. We're an education company. We do. A lot having to do with training folks and providing content to our partners, but we also represent the industry. And so it's kind of, I won't use the word easy, but it's possible for us to reach out to those events. And so to those players, I should say, for an event. So it's really fun because we could basically say, well, what are some of the more interesting topics? How can we demystify some of those topics? How can we get past the hype? There's so much hype about various topics. And I've seen hype cycles in things from, Linux and the cloud to
Yeah.
blockchain to AI.
AI now.
Really fun. It's really fun to kind of say, well, how can we do this, and who are the best players who can talk to us about data, about AI, about cyber.
Okay, how do you determine who are the best players?
Hmm.
Who are, for example, now it's AI. Let's not name names. It's okay, but um, you need to offer a training with AI
Mhm.
to a specific audience linked to the DoD. Who do you do it? Why do you choose the person or the team or the company or whatever that you're going to do it with?
They're in industry. We look for industry players, so organizations that have years of experience in it. We also look for individuals who have years of experience in it, whether it be as developers or people who will do solutions design and things like that. So we look for people who have, and organizations. So the organizations are major players, and then within those organizations, those people have to have pretty serious experience.
Great. Now, some of them do not have the same communication skills you have. You're great, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Uh,
that's sometimes
but
true.
you make it look super easy. I know it isn't, right?
Sure.
Um, Now, how do you judge that? What do you do? Because sometimes you can have an authority, right? A super guy, a guy who knows everything about AI, and he would deliver probably he has in his head a lot of stuff, but he can't deliver it.
They often stay in what I call abstractville, right? And to them, they are conveying linear information in a linear way, which, bless them, that's fantastic. And I have to think in terms of I become a galvanizer, and a galvanizer is somebody who not only is able to present things in a logical way, but also in an interesting way.
Yeah.
And so sometimes pre-sessions, talking to people, saying, it kind of exactly that in a nice way, say, I'm going to have to find ways to draw you out. And if you find yourself after 30 seconds not telling a story about, Jane or Billy or somebody, what they're doing with AI or what they're doing with something, then we're making a mistake. One time I gave gave a talk, and somebody who was an absolute expert in the cloud for a major healthcare organization. And what I was able to do to try to draw that out and kind of galvanize folks was, I said, you need to write down on a piece of paper, the names of 3 folks, and to be able to talk about them. And that was one way that helped somebody in the heat of the moment to focus in on something cool.
Wow, this is super interesting. So something I know about you, because I just know it, you don't script, right? You don't write scripts and read scripts.
Not really, no. The most that we'll
Why?
do is we will put in like sections and things like that. Say, well, these are areas that we'll want to hit.
Why?
Why don't we script?
Yeah.
Yeah, it has to be. If it's scripted, then it comes across as some sort of pitch, or it can come across as just hyper dry. If we don't come up with the topics though, and the order of presentation, then you also run into problems where you can just kind of circle around something rather than really get deep into it. So you have to have a structure. And I often say you start with a structure, and then you depart from it pretty quickly. What's that old saying? There's an old saying in the military. It's something like, no battle plan ever never survives the actual fight. I'm not saying that right?
Yeah.
But
No. I think it's no battle plan survives contact with the enemy.
The enemy.
Something like that.
Very well put. So no webinar structure, no meeting structure, no session structure ever survives contact with the content or with the area of interest. But if you don't have a plan to depart from, then you're also lost. So there's kind of a zen there, or kind of an awareness you have to have.
And your job is to keep the plan or keep the webinar moving forward.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And extract as much experience and data and facts from the guest.
That's right. And usually what I have to do is with the guest, we talk a bit beforehand and things like that. And I talk with them exactly about these types of things.
What is the structure? How does a prep talk function? How does it work?
Generally they can be relatively brief. A lot of these folks are really busy, so getting them in with their time can be a problem. But usually they get the idea of what it is. It's not so much me prepping them, right? It's almost prepping each other, right? And getting them to trust me. So I've got to find a way to empathize with them and then let them know that I'm kind of their best representative with the audience.
Great. And which are the 2-3 drivers that you find, the 2-3 elements that bring a webinar from good to great?
Geez, that's a really good question. I think a bit of spontaneity. I think it's one of the things. But you have to have your ducks in a row in order for that spontaneity to happen. If you just kind of go out there and show up and throw up, you've got a problem. But I think one of the first things is building some sort of rapport with both the presenter, I'll call it the presenter, the guest, right? Yeah. And the audience. So the audience has to trust you as a representative for them as well. And so interaction and being able to pivot in a smart way. And that sometimes is tough. Sometimes you take a risk and it doesn't work. But if you have the approach that's like not too rigid, not too fly off at the handle, but kind of right in the middle, then people will trust you. And even if something doesn't work at that moment, it's easy to recover from it.
James, there's something super hard, which is when we're addressing an audience in a meeting room, we see them, right? And we can kind of sense if they're tuning out, they're dying, the whole thing is a train wreck and we need to do something about it. Change tones, change speeds, do something. In a webinar, you don't see them. How do you assess what's really going on?
One of the ways you can do it is by the questions being asked or not asked. The other thing is a lot of webinars will allow a chat. Sometimes webinars don't because they're worried about people saying on things that are not safe for work or whatever or causing problems. But you can tell by the chat You can tell by the questions being asked. Another thing you can also tell by the way in which you're interacting with the individual. You can tell. One time I was talking to an individual who worked for a specific state in the United States, IT manager, and I could tell the IT manager kind of felt uncomfortable because they didn't feel that they were really, getting into the topic. And so I just said, one thing I think that we can do right now is let's talk about what's, on our minds right now. And he goes, well, I was thinking that we're not really getting into, point X, right? And so we got into point X, and you should see the audience just absolutely blossomed at that point, or the event blossomed because the audience just went, wow, these people are connecting. So there's something about being in the moment and then being unafraid to find out what happens in that moment. I think that's one of the things that keeps webinars or sessions or any sort of learning event from going from good to really great.
Just nuts and bolts here, but do you like videos? What do you like beyond, of course, the personal connection with the other party and being in the moment, which is something that happens to me as well whenever
you do. Yeah, I've seen it. Diego, I think one of the big things is I tend not to do videos and things like that. I think when people join a session, whether it be in person or online, because I see them as an in-person too, I don't think they're there to watch a video in general. Now, we leave a lot of leave-behinds. And I think that's really important, that people see when you show up, that they see that then in whatever pod or whatever resource area that you leave certain things that are resources for them. And those can be where the videos are and things like that. I've seen people even play those. You can tell they played them themselves, and they'll say, hey, I watched the video and what James and, person X, what they were talking about. They'll say, well, that goes against what the video said, I think, or can you go a bit deeper than what the video says? That can be helpful sometimes. Yeah. Right. So leave behinds are really cool.
Which are your favorite?
Favorite leave behinds?
Yeah.
It's a really good question. I think first of all, you leave as leave behinds, you leave the PowerPoint, any PowerPoint slides that you might use. Other leave behinds can be well-produced videos and things like that. Other leave behinds, I think, are industry reports from the individual, whether it be observations and in PowerPoint or PDF slide or things like that. All of those can be really good leave behinds. At CompTIA, we try really hard to leave behind research that we have.
And what do you think about polls and those engagement tools?
Polls? Yeah, it's a really good question. I'll use polls. The other thing that's fun is you could use it. Suddenly it slips my mind what it's called. Kahoot. Kahoot things and polls can be very helpful in getting people. It does depend on the audience. I've noticed a lot of folks in the industry, polls, not as interesting. Kahoot, sometimes not interesting, except for at the end, as long as it doesn't interfere with something. Educators, if it's an educator audience, they love the polls and they love Kahoot, things like that.
Yeah, so, absolutely. Kahoot is fun, by the way.
Yeah, I think it's really cool. I don't use it enough.
Yeah,
I don't use it enough. And the other thing, adding structure to things. Sometimes I think I miss the boat in not adding like 2 or 3 standard features, like a lightning round. You could spend a minute on lightning round questions that are the same for any audience. So for example, you and I, the same for any guest. So you and I, you'll be the guest, I'll be the moderator. I could do like 5 lightning round questions that ask a little bit about your personal life, that ask a little bit about your thoughts about AI today, and you could do it, leave it to say, only one word is allowed, so you could say AI, and then someone could say, and then you would say, overrated or unknown still. That's 2 words, but I'll give you that. Yeah. And then we can go back and do that. Those are always fun ways to kind of pep things up if it's necessary.
Yeah, absolutely. And what's on your mind right now?
In terms of trends and things like that?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm just leveraging your suggestion.
Yeah. One of the things I think that's really on my mind lately is I think that there's so much change going on, and there are so many shifts going on. I think there's a lot of uncertainty in people's minds about where to study and where to go and what is the real information about today's tech trends, but also how organizations are using technologists. You hear so much about various layoffs and things, and I
Yeah.
think that's creating an area of fear, uncertainty, and doubt in people's minds. And I'd like to get past that, or at least understand that better. Not only people's fear, uncertainty, and doubt, but the sources of that. Is it true? Is it illusory? And so far at CompTIA, we've discovered that most of that fear, uncertainty, and doubt is based on old ways of reporting that have not been gotten rid of about the tech sector. The tech sector used to be in the 1980s, the tech sector was all,
Yeah.
Silicon Valley, old boys networks. It ain't 1985 anymore, man. Things have
So what
changed.
does that mean? What could you go deeper?
Sure, man. The tech sector that used to be Silicon Valley and
Yeah.
whatever tech company is far less relevant than what you see happening in the manufacturing or the healthcare, or I would say especially the finance sectors. So see, those sectors that's a very different way of thinking about things in terms of Google and Microsoft or AWS or whatever. Now you're talking about, well, how is tech being used in a specific area such as mining or
Yeah.
manufacturing or whatever. And that allows people to open up and understand a very rich understanding of how tech is used rather than some stockbroker, stock price, what's happening in Silicon Valley, latest IPO kind of garbage. I don't find that useful in today's tech world.
And if you were talking to someone who is developing new capabilities, who's working in a warehouse, or probably in a garage or somewhere, startup, um,
Mm.
what would you tell them to study? What do you think is the next thing, or to look into?
There are always things, new and interesting forms of automation. And I would argue AI is one of those things. I think AI is automation that has the ability to work by itself and alter by itself, not necessarily improve. Not every human being improves with learning. Sometimes they learn the wrong things. But I think automation. I think the second thing, cybersecurity does remain important, but think in terms of unique cybersecurity skills rather than the same old, same old. You know what I mean? That term cybersecurity has always made me a bit nervous because it sometimes feels, it just feels a little stale sometimes. It allows people,
Yeah.
oh, I learned about cyber, 5 years ago, and so I'm okay. It's like, I don't think so. So automation, cybersecurity, something, get your foundations in things such as the cloud, data centers, and install it on premise. I think there's a lot of people who have rushed into a particular area and they might be really good in one narrow area, but they don't have the proper foundation for all things in what I would call the four pillars of IT: data, cybersecurity, infrastructure, from endpoints to routers and all that stuff. And then did I say software development? That should be the four.
James Stanger, CompTIA Evangelist.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Great having you.
It's great to be here, man. I sure appreciate your time and gonna really enjoy future events. So thank you very much.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to the next one now.
Yeah,
I had a
I'm
great
ready.
time in our last one. I'm looking forward to the next one. You know that.
I'm ready anytime, man.
Thank you. Connect with professionals from various sectors, including government, healthcare, tech, AI, and cybersecurity, who will offer practical, real world insights beyond theoretical discussions. Focus on delivering high quality information that attendees can immediately apply and also provide actionable insights. Build trust. I never get tired of stressing this. Effective communication in webinars requires empathy and rapport building with both the audience and other speakers. Adaptability and structure. Well, having a structured plan is essential. The ability to pivot and adapt in real time is crucial for successful webinars. Balancing spontaneity with organization helps maintain audience interest and ensures the event remains informative and engaging. James has given us insights into his experience, his knowledge, and how to solve key issues in when organizing and preparing for a webinar. He's against scripts. Of course, if you are for scripts or if you are for different formulas for building events, please let me know. Of course, below. Are there any ideas we want to talk about? Let me know. Um, is there anything you'd like to share from your specific group? Again, let me know. Please comment, talk to me. Don't talk to me. You can also do that. But the important thing is that being a webinar hacker is better done in a group. So join us and be a part of this. Make sure you subscribe, you follow, and you share with your trusted friends. See you next time.